We keep saying, why am I still not over this? What if that's the wrong question? Healing doesn't fall apart all at once. It slips through the small things we barely notice. The conversation you try to replay, the memories you keep visiting, the hope that one day it will all make sense. We call it healing, yet we keep reaching for the very things that pulls us back. So instead of asking, why am I still hurting? Try asking, what keeps pulling you back to this place? And that's where healing changes, and that's where I want to begin. The first interruption to healing is that you keep reopening the story. One of the biggest ways we interrupt our healing is by reopening the story. The wound happened once, but the mind keeps returning to it. You try to replay conversation. You try to replay what they said or what you could have said. What would have happened if you made a different decision? The mind keeps searching for an ending it can live with, as if one more replay will finally change what already happened. It never does. The story stays the same. The only thing that will ever change or can change is how many times you make yourself live through it. When this keeps happening, the wound doesn't get a chance to settle. It stays fresh, not from new pain, but from old pain being visited again and again. Healing asks for space, but the story keeps pulling you back into the room. And that's where a lot of us get stuck. We think we're trying to understand what happened. What we're really doing is keeping ourselves connected to it. And once the mind gets used to returning there, it starts looking for a reminder without you even noticing. And that's what I want to talk about next. Not the wound itself, the reminders we keep holding on to. You keep looking for proof that it's over. You don't just revisit the story, you look for proof that you've moved on. You read the old messages just to see how you feel. You come across their profile. You tell yourself it's only a quick look. You hear their name and quietly check if your chest still feels heavy. It could feel harmless, almost like you're measuring your progress. But the problem is, every visit asks the one to speak again. Every check invites the memory back into the room. It needs the chance to exist without being examined. Think about a cut on your hand. You wouldn't keep pulling the bandage off every morning just to see if it's closed. You leave it alone, not to ignore it, but to let a wound do what it's meant to do. Emotional wounds aren't different. They need room, they need distance. They need days where they aren't supposed to prove anything. In the midst of all this, we still ask the same question, am I still over it now? The answer rarely changes while we're still standing in the same place. There's another habit that keeps us there, one that is much quieter. You keep waiting for a different ending. We convince ourselves, I just need one more thing, one more conversation, one more explanation, one more apology, one moment where they finally understand what they did. We try to tell ourselves, once I get there, I'll be able to move on. Yet every day that answer doesn't come. Your life stays tied to a moment that already ended. The wound doesn't stay open, the waiting does. We hand our healing to someone who isn't even holding it. Someone who may never call, who may never explain, never become the person we hoped they would be. That's a heavy place to leave your peace. Healing changes the moment you stop waiting for the past to finish what it never started. The wound does not have to wait for permission to close. It can close without the apology, without the explanation, and without the ending you imagine. Yet, there's another habit that quietly keeps the wound alive. It has nothing to do with the past, it has everything to do with how you keep protecting the wound. The wound doesn't only leave pain behind, it leaves fear. Fear of being hurt again, fear of trusting again, fear of ending up in the same place. So you make a promise to yourself, I'll never let that happen again. It sounds like protection, it feels like protection. Then that promise quietly grows into a wall. You hold people at a distance. Not everyone has given you a reason to do this, yet they still have to pay for what someone else did. You question people's intention before you even give them a chance. You keep your guard up, even in places where you don't need to. The wound isn't being protected from new pain anymore, it's being protected from healing. Healing asks you to believe that life can be different. The wound keeps whispering, don't risk it. One voice pulls you forward and the other keeps pulling you back. Healing doesn't ask you to forget what happened. It asks you not to let yesterday decide who gets access to tomorrow. And there is one interruption, one that's easy to miss. It has nothing to do with past, it has nothing to do with other people. It has everything to do with the relationship you build with your pain. You keep letting the wound speak for you. Every interruption we've talked about comes back to one habit. The wound gets the final say. It decides what people can get close. It decides what chances you won't take. It decides which part of yourself stays hidden. Little by little, your life starts asking the wound for permission. Can I trust again? Can I love again? Can I believe this person? Can I move forward? The wound answers every question. Healing changes the moment that role changes. The wound can tell you what happened. It doesn't get to tell you what's possible. It can remind you where you've been. It doesn't get to decide where you go next. The pain deserves to be acknowledged. It doesn't deserve to be in charge. That's the difference. And that difference changes everything. Healing isn't only about what happened to you. It's about what you keep returning to. Every time you replay the story, check the wound, wait for an ending that never comes, or let fear make your next decision, healing gets interrupted. Not because you're broken, not because you're incapable of moving on. The wound never gets the space it needs to close. Healing doesn't ask you to erase the past. It asks you to stop giving the past more power than it deserves. And that doesn't happen in one big grand moment. It happens every time you choose not to reopen what has been trying to heal. If this conversation gave you something to think about, I'd love you to join me again. There are still so many parts of ourselves worth understanding, and that's what we'll keep exploring here. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. This is Inner Room, a place where we try to understand ourselves a little bit better. Until our next conversation, keep getting back to yourself. See you in the Inner Room.